Hello and welcome to Nutshell Recaps. This video explains the synopsis of the movie, Annihilation. Warning, there will be spoilers, so proceed with caution. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, it will really help our channel grow. Lena, a cellular biology professor and former soldier in the United States Army, is shown in the opening scene in a confinement cell. A sizable crowd is gathering outside to listen in as she is questioned by the hazmat-clad lab experts. Lena is questioned by a researcher by the name of Lomax about how she survived her 2-month journey on food for just 2 weeks. Lena responds by saying she has no memory of consuming anything throughout the assignment. In addition, she says she was only there for a few days or a week. She doesn't recall anything when Lomax asks about the other members of her squad. After a few years, the scene jumps ahead in time and we witness a meteor streaking across space before colliding with Earth. It descends inside a Florida lighthouse and soon begins to radiate an enigmatic glow that gradually spreads throughout its surroundings. Lena is shown giving her students a biology lesson on cell division and its origin 3 years after this incident, possibly even before the expedition. Daniel, her coworker, asks her to a cookout at his house after class, but she declines with an explanation. Daniel tells her that a year has passed since she lost her husband Kane and that spending time with friends is not a slight on his memory. Lena still turns down the invitation, nevertheless, and departs. Lena is crying back home as she remembers her green beret-wearing husband, who was reportedly killed in action. After that, she starts painting her bedroom when Kane appears out of the blue. She hurries up to give him a strong hug since she is so happy to see him alive, but Kane acts differently. Subsequently, she probes him multiple times on his prolonged absence and whether or not he was on a covert mission. But instead of answering any of her queries, Kane appears confused. He says he found himself outside the room and saw the door open when Lena wonders how he made it back home. At that moment, Kane says he's not feeling well since there's blood in the water and takes a sip of it. Lena notices this and quickly dials for an ambulance to take him to the hospital. As they go, the police cars obstruct their road and start taking Kane away. Lena tries to stop them, but they inject her with a sedative, rendering her unconscious. Afterwards, Lena regains her consciousness and finds herself in a government facility called Area X there. She is approached by the head of the department named Dr. Ventress, who introduces herself as a psychologist and works for an organization called the Southern Reach. Ventress then asks Lena about her husband's mission and how he returned, but the latter is oblivious. Lena demands to know what's going on, and Ventress shows her a mysterious glowing zone called the Shimmer caused by a meteor. She explains that its bounds are growing and that all cities and states will be engulfed if it is not halted. Ventress claims that Kane was on a covert mission to the Shimmer and that he is the only one who has come back. All members of his crew are said to be deceased or missing. Unfortunately, Kane also has severe internal hemorrhage and multiple organ failure. Later that evening, Anya, a paramedic, approaches Lena as she is thinking back on some pleasant times she had with her spouse. In the latter, Lena meets 2 of her friends, Josie, a postdoctoral physicist, and Cass, a geomorphologist. Finally, Lena states that she works as a biologist at Johns Hopkins. It doesn't take long for her to realize that Ventress will be leading the group as they enter the Shimmer. What do the women think transpired on the past missions? Lena asks. Anya responds by speculating that people who entered the zone either died from something or went insane and murdered one another. Lena remains mute and decides not to disclose that the military member in question is her husband when Cass talks about someone who was able to return. When Lena approaches Ventress the following morning, she asks to be allowed to accompany them on their adventure, and she grants her request. The 5 women get ready for the next action and approach the Shimmer while brandishing their firearms. They enter and, amazingly, 3 or 4 days later, wake up in a tent. They don't remember anything that occurred in the interval. They also find that their signaling and navigation equipment has failed. Following that, they all begin to move southward with the aid of the sun and passing time. They eventually reach a marsh where they discover many flower kinds. Lena is shocked to see that they are all growing from the same branch when she examines them more closely. Josie explores a tiny cottage in the interim, but all of a sudden she is pulled into the sea by an unknown force. She is successfully pulled out as everyone rushes to help her. A few seconds later, they see a large alligator hurtling in their direction. Lena uses her military expertise to fire the alligator nonstop until it stops moving. She then looks into the crocodile's jaws and finds shark teeth there. It seems as though there might have been some sort of hybridization taking place among the Shimmer. Then they all get aboard 2 boats and head for the lighthouse, their final target. Lena rides with Cass, and they discuss their history. Lena discloses that she served in the army and that her spouse was killed in combat. Cass, in turn, says she lost her daughter to leukemia. The other members of the squad, including Anya, a recovered addict, and Josie, who attempted to carry out the unimaginable, are also revealed by her. She continues by saying that aside from the fact that Ventress is alone and has no friends or family, not much seems to be known about her. The trio eventually reaches Fort Amaya, a military installation that served as the Southern Reach's former headquarters prior to the Shimmer engulfing it. Similar to tumors, the more they delve, the more alterations they find. They discover that the previous expedition crew had also utilized the building as a camp as soon as they get inside. They find a microchip after doing more research, which was presumably abandoned by the prior group. They discover a video as they plug it into their gadget, showing Kane opening up his fellow soldier's stomach to observe the enlarged intestine writhing like a snake. They find the upper body of a soldier, covered in fungi and separated from its lower body, in another section of the building. After learning of these revelations, Josie says she doesn't want to stay there any longer, but Ventress says they have no choice because it is growing dark. That evening, Lena can't sleep because she keeps thinking about her husband's peculiar actions right before departing for the mission. She thus awakens and begins analyzing a cell sample that she had previously collected. She is astounded to observe, under a microscope, that the cells are dividing quickly in contrast to how normally cells do. Not too long afterward, she visits Ventress, who is standing guard. When Lena questions her husband about why he volunteered for the mission, Ventress suggests that there may be a problem in their marriage. After hearing this, Lena concludes that Kane chose to join the expedition because her husband must have learned of her romance with Daniel. A noise startles the two women shortly after. Cass wakes up, too, and approaches to look around. While looking around, Cass is taken away by a large, bear-like creature that emerges from behind. Josie and Anya make the decision to go back to the institution in the morning after having been attacked twice. But Ventress declines, getting ready to go in search of the lighthouse by herself. Lena convinces Josie and Anya to stick with it because she wants to continue it even if it means feeling less guilty. After that, they all move forward through the forest, following Ventress. After some time, Lena goes further by herself after finding Cass's shoe. She later spots two deers that are exactly alike and have what look to be flower-mutated horns. Searching further, she finds Cass's mutilated body next to a tree. After Lena returns to her team in the following scene and updates them on the situation, they carry on with their expedition. The gang decides to stop there as it begins to become darker. They find plants there that have evolved into humanoids. After that, Josie begins to piece together the details in her head and hypothesizes that the Shimmer acts like a prism, refracting everything that is within of it, including human DNA. This is the cause of interspecies hybridization and mutation, according to Josie. They all proceed on foot to an abandoned house nearby to spend the night after this. Everyone falls asleep, with the exception of Anya, who becomes suspicious when she sees her fingerprint moving. It was then that she realized he was her husband when she found a picture of Kane in Lena's necklace. She attacks and knocks her unconscious after realizing the deception. Lena wakes up shortly afterward to see that Josie and Ventress are also strapped to a chair. Anya plans to murder Lena, blaming her for Cass's demise. They immediately race there, nevertheless, upon hearing Cass's cries for assistance. The next thing the group hears is a roaring sound. Shortly after, the same colossal and mutated bear enters the house and starts circling them. It turns out that Cass's voice is coming from the same bear because of the gene fusion. The bear tries to devour Lena, but Anya, who is now wounded by the bear's attack, walks in with a gun. She tries to shoot the bear, but the creature instead tears her apart. The bear then returns to Lena, but Josie somehow manages to free herself and shoots the bear to death. Ventress fears that she wouldn't make it to the lighthouse if she stays with the group, so she sets off towards the lighthouse alone. After discovering abnormalities in Josie's blood, Lena finds her outside in the garden early in the morning. Josie thinks everyone will eventually carry the mutations. Walking away, she examines the leaves and roots that are starting to sprout on her arm. Josie vanishes quickly despite Lena's best efforts to stop her. Her mutation into a humanoid plant is most likely what occurs. Finally arriving at the coast, Lena sees the lighthouse from a distance now that she is by herself. Many skulls and skeletons are laying outside, she observes as she gets closer. Another burned skeleton is positioned against the wall with a camera pointed at it when Lena enters the lighthouse. She plays the footage and sees Kane holding a phosphorus grenade while seated. Kane claims that because his perception of reality seems to have been distorted, he questions his own identity. Before he detonates the device and blows himself dead, he asks the person behind the camera to tend to Lena. The guy behind the camera then appears in frame and is identified as a type of Kane clone. Lena realizes that the Kane she had previously met was a doppelganger as a result of this. Lena is devastated by all of these disclosures, yet she doesn't stop working towards her goal. As she ventures farther within the lighthouse, she discovers Ventress, who seems to be changing. Lena is informed by Ventress that the Shimmer is extraterrestrial in nature and that it is getting ready for destruction. Her body then begins to transform into a brilliant form of light. She takes in a droplet of blood from Lena's face during her metamorphosis, turning into a shimmering, faceless humanoid. Lena shoots in a hurry, but it doesn't seem to be affected. The humanoid shape teleports in front of her as she escapes the tunnel out of panic. The creature strikes back at Lena's attempts to fight. It takes Lena some time to realize that the creature is just mimicking her behavior and is not actually hurting her. While trying to flee, Lena is grabbed by the creature, which then keeps imitating her. Lena discovers a grenade in the midst of this and has an idea. As the thing begins to take on her appearance, she carefully hands the grenade to it. The lighthouse explodes as Lena takes out its pin and bolts from the building. The whole lighthouse burns as a result of the thing spreading the fire. The entire Shimmer eventually disappears. Then, back in the present, the scene switches to the ongoing interrogation. Lomax inquires as to what they desired, believing it to be an alien. Lena responds that they were just altering everything to create a new ecosystem. Therefore, they didn't want anything. After that, Lomax informs her that Kane made a full recovery on his own following the Shimmer's disappearance. He doubts it, but Lena goes to his room and asks if he is truly Kane. He does, however, identify her as Lena, and they give each other a hug. Their eyes sparkle as they continue to embrace, revealing that they have both undergone mutations.